say I've been getting tatted. They say they like my ink, yeah, I say that I'm flattered. They ask me where I've been, I say I've been getting tatted. On a regular, decorations in my body, I can't get enough.
Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're just going to be going over all the no crank, no start issues on your BMW E60, E90, E63, E65 and E66. Now this is a common problem that nobody really explains, and nobody really explains why your car ain't starting. I know in the USA you guys get this a lot, so this is why I'm going to be going over this symptom. Nobody's done this video for anyone to really understand, because nobody really understands these cars full stop. So I'm going to go over all the common problems why your car won't start and won't crank, and then what we'll do is we'll go over a couple of battery drain issues while we go over this video as well. So let's go over it on the E60. So the first one, guys, as you will see right there, is the battery. Now, as a lot of you would have known from my previous video, I installed a new battery to this car just to protect it. It was nothing wrong with the original one, just I changed it to be on the safe side. Now, if your battery goes flat, you will just hear a clicking sound and your car won't start. This is very, very common on the E60s, E90s and all the models, because these cars have a lot of electronics, and over the time the battery goes flat and nobody thinks to change it until it ends up coming to a point where your car won't start, and no battery charger, no nothing is going to rectify a dead battery, because it takes a long time for these batteries to charge. Now the next one, as you'll see right here, is the IBS sensor, which goes to the positive lead, and also here it wraps around everywhere on the battery itself, which is all here going up to here on the IBS sensor. Now they do go faulty on pre-2006 cars, which is before 2005, and everyone goes unplugging them hoping it's going to solve their issue. Now it does solve your issue for the time being, but then you end up with a load of different fault codes, because that IBS sensor is used to tell the DME what battery's in it, how it's charging, so it can let the alternator know how much current to send through the whole car. Now unplugging it is not a good idea. I highly recommend not to, and if yours does go faulty, get it sorted. Don't unplug it, because unplugging it is just going to make the problem worse instead of just rectifying the issue beforehand. Keeping it in is crucial for the car, so I suggest to get it sorted if you do have a problem. I do know it is expensive for a new IBS, but BMW didn't come cheap, they weren't made cheap. You can't be disconnecting this to just keep the car running. Go and get it sorted, because what will happen after a long time, your battery will just drain, because it doesn't know even if it's registered. The IBS sensor is used, that's why it's called an intelligent battery sensor, for the DME and all the other modules to communicate with the battery to make sure it's not overcharging. And that's why a lot of you, when you jump start your car, you end up frying the modules, because that IBS sensor is there to make sure the battery doesn't get the wrong voltage, and neither does the rest of the modules on the car. Now the next one here, guys, which can cause no crank no start, is these battery terminals right here. As you guys know, they run under the floor, which is at the back here. Underneath that polystyrene right there is where the other battery cable sits, which bolts to the chassis, as you guys know. Now that can become loose and cause no crank no start as well, because it's actually a positive cable, so it's very, very important. As you see here, all this cable run off to the fuse box. It's all for the electronics on the car, so if that becomes loose, it can cause a massive mess of problems. To be aware of that. The next one, guys, in the boot area, that's usually on the pre-2006 cars, is the micro power module. If your client running on the KGM or the ZGM, you will have micro power module in the boot. Now that can cause a lot of different issues, especially with battery drain. I get asked this a lot, asking what's draining their battery. That can really drain your battery, because what's happening is that micro power module isn't putting the central electronics modules, which is all the iDrive and cluster, to sleep. Now when that goes bad, usually with the pins get corroded, or usually water gets inside the module and itself on the circuit and ends up frying, and it just sits located under here in your boot well, and it will be under this floor here. BMW put them there, but you guys can go and see my other video for relocation to the other side here. It's a common problem, and it can cause a lot of issues, so be aware of that and make sure you check that as well. If you're getting any kind of central electronics failure, if you're getting any kind of wake up on all the modules inside the car, if your modules ain't going to sleep, that's another problem. If you're getting battery drain, check the micro power module, because it's very, very important. As I said, battery is for no crank no start. That'll be the first thing you guys are going to want to check before checking anything else. But if you're getting battery drain issues as well, check your micro power module immediately. Do not go checking it. If your car's past 2006, you will not have a micro power module. You will have the KGM. So don't think you ain't got one there. If you ain't got it there, it's for a reason. You're not meant to have it there. It will not be disconnected because the iDrive will not even respond without it if you've got an iDrive. So if your iDrive's working, your either micro power module's fine, or you don't have it. It's very simple. But if you do have it and you're getting glitching or any kind of errors, check that micro power module. Now, to fix the iDrive as well, if you're getting iDrive flickers, make sure you disconnect that micro power module and reconnect it, because it can actually fix the iDrive system. And it also can fix the controller if the controller for the iDrive is becoming unresponsive. So the next one, guys, is your cluster. Now, a lot of you would already know that I've spoke to you previously about this, about battery drain and the car not starting and things like that. Now, the cluster is responsible for putting all the modules to sleep. Now, if that goes faulty, what will happen is the modules will not go to sleep, because this controls the shutdown of all the engine electronics as well as the iDrive. Usually, if you sit in the car and lock it, you will hear a flap open and close when everything's shutting down, which is the IHK, because it's linked onto the IHK, which is this right here. You'll hear the flap shut inside it. Now, if that ain't responding, your flaps will not shut and your car will stay awake. So it's very critical that you check your cluster as well, because that can be the cause of battery drain issues, as well as no crank, no start, because the cluster is all linked with the DME along the lines of everything else inside the car. The next one on these, which can cause a battery drain issue, is the iDrive system itself. Now, what happens is the fans stay active while the car's trying to go to sleep, and the fan keeps on blowing. So what happens is, because the chips are failed, the fans itself don't stop turning, because it doesn't know when to shut down, because obviously it's lost complete, it's blown the chip, so it just keeps going and going and going and going. That's why a lot of you are getting your iDrive resetting, your iDrive controller not responding. There's a lot of variables to it. If you're getting battery drain issues, that's another common one on here, that your iDrive is completely knackered. It is common in countries with very hot weather. I get asked this a lot, that the people's iDrive ain't responding, and this is why. The chips inside fail, the fan keeps on turning and keeping your car awake. So you need to be aware of that. It's something that, like I say, I've said from day one since I started YouTube about this iDrive problem. And like I say, you just have to either like it or lump it, just go and get it repaired. It's quite expensive to get done, because it's a very, very hard job involved. Like I said, I used to do it, but then I stopped doing them because of that reason. I've not ever noticed anything about the IHK, so you do not have to worry about that. The main ones that I've known to keep the car awake is the iDrive on the fan itself keep going and not closing off properly, where that's stuck in boot mode, and also the cluster's going faulty where it's blowing the chips inside, keeping the whole car awake. Like I said though, if your iDrive is rebooting, check your micro power module in the boot. As I said, if your car's over 2006, you will not have the micro power module. So don't even think of trying to check in your boot. You will be running the KGM. This is only for cars 2003 to 2005. It's mostly diesels that suffer this issue big time. And another common problem I'm going to speak about is central electronics failure. As many of you guys know, I found the problem, which is the KBM, which sits right under there, under the dash. And we sorted it. If you're getting central electronics failure, which a lot of you get, this is the main common cause for it, of all your systems going down and your cluster flickering and cutting out, but it doesn't cut the engine, it's only cutting all the electricals to the car. So just be aware of that as well. Okay guys, so another one I want to talk to you about is the DME and the CAS. Now, if your DME and CAS come out of alignment, your car will not start, because the two of them have got the rolling code synced with your key to be able to start your ignition up. Now, if they come out of alignment, you'll get no cranking but no starting at all. So you will need to get it realigned. The only way you can do that is with E60. So you will need to purchase E60 to be able to resync your CAS and DME. But sometimes that can't even do it. So you will need specialist software if that can't do it. So when that goes faulty, you will know, because the car will just turn over but not start, which then means you've got a CAS and DME fault and it will need to be realigned. Usually what happens is the two of them, when they come off from even testing, they're stored with the EWS, which is the electronic driver protection, and they're married together, the CAS and DME, so they can't be used in other vehicles. That's why BMW call it marrying them together or syncing them together. There's many ways we put it, but usually I call it marrying them together. So the next one I want to speak to you guys about now as well is the steering lock light. Now, if your ELV light comes on, a lot of you will realize your E90s will not start. That is for a very good reason. The ELV is used to stop people driving away with your car in case they managed to, I don't know, hot wire it or make another key and they don't have the proper rolling codes. The ELV will not deactivate. The ELV, which is the steering lock, is used in sync with the CAS. The CAS and the DME respond, give the rolling codes, unlock the steering lock when you put the key in. That's how it works. The ELV, you guys would have seen it on my bench, is a little device. It's used for that reason, to be able to do that. If you end up with your ELV completely toast, the only way you can get rid of it is to completely code it out, which I can do, and I know how to get rid of them. Or you've got to be a professional to be able to remove it completely out the steering column to be able to free up your steering column. This was a common issue on the E90, and it still is to this day. When I used to work at the garages, we used to be removing them a lot from the steering columns because it was a massive issue, and then I learned how to code them out completely so they don't even activate, which has to be coded out, and I know how to do that. So if you have got the ELV light on and your car will not start, usually that's because your battery's gone flat or you've jumped it and you've probably fried the ELV, and that obviously is not responding in terms of the CAS, so it will not start your car, and it's for a very good reason as well. And that's because obviously they think the car's got all mismatched, so the CAS probably come out of alignment, and you need to realign the CAS with the ELV as well, which you can reset the ELV as well as the CAS. Okay guys, so another way to know if your car's having a battery drain issue is when you lock your car, after 2 minutes this light here should go off, and always leave this light on. Don't leave your back windows unlocked, because this light shows you, and I know if it's on the center armrest here, you should still be able to see it. If that light is going out, that means the combi's switching off everything, because the combi is responsible for switching off the light panel here. So make sure you leave that on so you can see if your car's going to sleep. The next one is the gearbox light. Now that should go off after around 10 minutes when you've got the ignition off, but sometimes it doesn't go off in time, so just be aware of that as well, that if your gearbox light ain't going off, then you do have a battery drain issue. But these can take about 10 to 20 minutes to turn off, so please be aware of that. Don't be scared. Come out after 20 minutes, half hour, and check. Whatever you do, if you have the cassette key, do not bring this out with you, because this sends a signal to the CAS to wake up. That will activate the CAS and make the car alert again and make it awake. It's got a wake up signal in the key that sends it to the CAS, so be aware of that. And also activates the fuel pump to start priming, so keep the key away from the car at all times while it's sleeping. Okay guys, to the engine side. So a lot of you will be aware, another common problem why your car won't crank or start on these is due to your starter motor. Now the starter motors like to go out, which they do on quite a lot of cars, but I haven't noticed it on these. But I know in the USA you guys go through the starter motors and you don't know why you can't find a no crank, no start. The starter motor will not turn if it's completely seized. It's a common problem, and like I said, if it fails, your car definitely ain't gonna start, so make sure you check that, and also check the plug that goes onto the starter motor as well, and all the cabling that goes to the starter motor when you're down there. The next one on these will be, and this relates for all engines, again like the starter motor, is the crankshaft sensor. Make sure you check that, because that is the signal to the DME to turn the crank over. Now if the crankshaft sensor goes bad, your car will not start or will not even fire up, because you've got to remember that knows the position of the crankshaft itself to turn to start the car up. So if that goes bad, your car definitely won't start, and you make sure you go and check that sensor as well. Now if your car's cranking and then cutting out, you can also check your cam sensors, because they're responsible on all the cars as well, and telling the DME the timing angle. So if they fail, then you've got another problem as well where your car won't start. But let's move on to the biggest problem that I know a lot of people in the US have, is the DME, which sits underneath this pollen filter housing here. And this goes for the E60s, E90s, and E65s and E63s in America. All of you guys suffer with water getting into your DME box and destroying your ECU. Now if you've got no crank, no start, I assure you, please go and check your DME area underneath the pollen filter housing, or wherever it's located on your cars, which is usually always located under here, because the best protection. It'll vary, it'll be on the other side, which is over there on some cars in the US. So just check underneath here in your DME box, and your ECU will probably be water damaged. It's a common problem I'm asked. I'm always asked to clone them in the US as well for this simple, straightforward problem. Another one why your car won't start here is, this relates a lot to the M52, is this wire right here, this ground strap. If you ain't got that ground strap on, take my word on this, your car will not start. And I'm telling you that now, it will not start at all. That ground strap has to be on to let this ignition start. Now as I said, it doesn't go for all engines, like I say, because some people might have the diesel, some people might have this V8, but this should relate to all engines on the battery drain issues, and as well as the no crank, no start. Especially in the US, always go and check your DME area, because it's a common problem. I know, especially on the 7 Series, you guys are getting a lot of water in your ECU boxes, especially at this time of the year, and this keeps failing. So make sure you check that, because that could be the problem why you're getting no crank, no start. It's the most common cause. In this country as well, we're getting no crank, no start. I'm going to just explain this right now. In the UK, we like to get water on E60s under here, which is the brake servo. But also, a lot of guys don't notice, but this is the engine wiring loom that's running straight in there as well, and it goes into the cabin of the car. Now, if you guys don't check that and pull the plugs, as you would have seen in my video regarding all the water sitting in there, and you keep letting it build up, the water ends up going through the interior, which in turn will end up killing out all the electronics, because they're soaked in water. And then what happens is it's sending mixed signals between all the wires going everywhere to the combi and to the iDrive, in turn causing your car to have fluctuations in power because all the wires have got wet. Now you would have to cut all this loom open just to be able to clean it all out. So I'd advise you, if you're getting all that as well, and you're getting no crank, no start, and issues with all your instruments inside, make sure you check for water under this pollen filter housing here if you're in the UK, which is in a brake servo, and a lot of other countries as well may have it like this. Make sure you check that pollen filter housing for water inside that brake servo area, because it's usually full quite high, literally to the point it's going to come out of out of here up to the scuttle. So be aware of that, and make sure you check for water and drain it. There's 2 little plugs that sit under the servo, pull them out and don't ever put them back in. So the next one, guys, I want to relate to, which is, you guys would have seen another one of my videos, which I'm going to state it again because a lot of people don't know, and any new subscribers will only just be seeing this, but I'm going to relate this right now. Do not jump start your car with another car. Always use a proper jump pack, and I'll tell you why. When you jump your car from another vehicle and they rev it, that's sending a huge amount of voltage straight from the alternator straight to the car here. Now you have to remember, BMW is very well equipped with a lot of electronics, and I keep seeing this. I've got a guy in the US who's had this at the moment who told me he's jumped his car and he has a ton of faults where he's fried all the electronics from someone jumping it, and he's had the car jumped. The battery was dead. He got it from auction, and they only got rid of it because obviously they've tried to jump it and they fried all the electrics. Now if you guys try and jump this will fry your DME and probably fry all the electronics on the car, which will end up in no crank, no start as well. So please be aware that if you try and jump this car with another car and they're revving it to try and send power, that is the wrong thing to do, because what happens is the moment you touch that ignition button on, or you try to fire it, you got to remember the whole electronics on the car are zapping power the moment the ignition comes on. So any charger, you go and even put a little jump pack on it, all the electronics wake up immediately from a dead battery. Everything starts going off, all the bells, whistles, all the iDrive powers on, everything. So you think how much current that's taken already from another car, and you got to remember, these cars don't know when you're turning it through here what to send back to the battery, because you got to remember that's why the IBS sensor's there, which sends it back to the DME. If you're going to jump start these cars, jump it from the battery and do not jump it from these 2 terminals here. BMW even state these 2 terminals are not the jumping points. These 2 terminals are actually for when you go in for programming, for them to be able to put the voltage stabilizer to them. This is what these terminals are for, and for battery chargers they are not to be used as jump points at all on this engine. And trust me, take my advice on that, because this has been the second person now that's come to me telling me his whole car ain't starting, and because it was jump started. I'm telling you guys, you don't want to take my advice, but you jump it and you'll see what happens after. But I'm telling you now, this is another problem for no crank, no start, and you'll know that when your DME's fried and you've got electronic faults and cylinder misfires on all cylinders and everything ain't responding. This is the main common problem. I had another guy, you guys would have seen, I did an ECU for a guy. He done exactly the same thing. His battery went dead during programming. It programmed fine, but he tried to jump start it and then he fried his ECU in the whole cast. It is a common problem. These cars do not like to be jump started at all. The best thing to do, don't let your battery go flat, change your battery when needed. This is because of people being cheap, trying to just run the car, not actually fix the problems, just trying to jump it to let it get them through. If you want a car just to get you through, this is the wrong car for you. These cars are not the cars to get you through. So guys, take my word and trust me on this. I am telling you, please do not jump start your cars. Okay guys, so I've just gone over the common no crank, no start issues, as well as the battery drain issues. Now I have shown you how you can check for a battery drain issue, but you can also sit in your car, lock the keys, sit still and listen for everything to power down. Now it is a long time to wait for the gearbox light to go out, but you'll be able to see everything else go out, and you'll also be able to hear if the combi and the flaps on the HK are closing, which then means the car's being put to sleep. Now if your car isn't going to sleep, you need to start searching. It could be many things. I do recommend using ISTA because obviously it can show you the wake up car, and you can always power it down, and you can also see what's keeping the car awake. We was going to do this in this video, but it is a bit long to be showing how to do that. It's a long process. You also have to lock yourself in the car, and obviously because the CAS is always awake on the signal, you can always keep the diagnostics plugged up to it anyway. I hope this video will help a lot of people out, because I know it's something that a lot of people have been looking for on E60, and there's not really no one with the knowledge, and that's why I think a lot of people haven't done this video, because it does relate to E60 E90 E63 E65 E66, and it is quite a complicated car, and a lot of people don't understand the way the electronics work in this car. It can be quite confusing at sometimes. Another thing I just wanted to tell you guys, just make sure your fuses are all correct as well, because if one fuse is out and something ain't responding properly, it won't let the car go to sleep as well. And if it's a main important module on the tree that is needed to put the car to sleep, and you've got the fuse out for that, that can affect the whole sleep process of the whole car. So just make sure your fuses are in as well properly. So anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you haven't. This is BMW Dr. Dean here, and goodbye.